Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Korachi, and in this video here we will cover application-based attacks with focus on injection attacks. Now, in the upcoming slides, I'll explore several examples of injection attacks. Please note that this is not an exhaustive list. As injection attacks encompasses, very wide variety of techniques and scenarios across different system and application. Now, so what is injection attack? Now, it's a category of cyber attacks in which an attacker exploits vulnerabilities in an application by injecting malicious input. We're going to see some examples of this into the code, potentially tricking the application into executing unauthorized commands or granting unintended access to data. Now, these attacks occur when application accept untrusted input without proper validation. See, that's the key. There's no input validation or sanitization. Now, the first one, I'm going to talk about SQL injection attacks. Now, what is it? Now, attacker inject malicious SQL statement here through the web application into the SQL database server through input fields to manipulate or access the underlying database. Now, what is the impact? Well, it could be unauthorized access to sensitive data, modification or deletion of records, and in some cases, complete database compromise. Okay, so one of the things, if you want to learn different types of attacks or web penetration attacks, one of them is the DVWA. It's a very useful tool for practicing learning SQL and other types of attacks. If you look at the screen, you could download it by itself, from the VernHub website, or you could access it through OWASP BWA. And OWASP BWA has multiple servers, multiple vulnerable web servers, and other applications that you could practice, including, like the OWASP multi-day 2. It contains many vulnerable applications. Now, well, in SQL, let's look first at the single quote. So we know that single quote is used to define strings typos. It basically indicates the beginning and the end of a string value. When querying a database, you often must compare or insert string values. Like single quotes are used to enclose these strings. Now, for basic injection attack, if you want to see if the website is vulnerable to SQL injection attack, we could simply enter an SQL quote into the input field to see if an error is triggered, indicating a potential vulnerabilities. Now, attacker can, input a single quote to break out of the intended string context and inject arbitrary SQL if the logs show an SQL syntax error. Now, this suggests that, the single quote character messed up something inside the SQL database. Now, for example, here, using this, this server here, or that comes with OWASP, I entered single quote here, and then I pressed view account details here. Okay. Now, the result is we got syntax error, which, you could see that there's an error message over here. Now, what do we learn here? Now, we know by looking at the file here, by looking at the path, this is Linux operating system. Now, in the message area here, there are several errors and indication. Now, the first one here, it says MySQL server. Now, so we know that, that the website is using MySQL database. Now, why this is important? Because the backend database will determine the type of interaction we can have with it via the application. Now, the error message here, the 1064, it's basically the result of injecting the single quote over here. Now, this happens because The SQL query is malformed or improperly constructed, causing the error here. So basically, the username here, or the name here, field received invalid input, leading to the failure of SQL query. So therefore, the username and or the password, if you enter certain characters here in this form, if it's vulnerable, okay, it can lead to error message or exposing database, as we're gonna see in the next few slides here. Now, one of the examples here, the simple examples, if you look at it, if we enter this code right here, which is one single quote or 1 = 1 hash, that's a common SQL injection example. The payload, the one you see right here, okay, breaks out of the intended query logic and manipulate the SQL statement to always evaluate as a true. Okay, so let's break it down. Now, the one single quote or 1 = 1, okay, this part here makes the condition always true. So like, because 1 = 1 is always true. Now, the hash one right here comments out the rest of the query, ignoring any additional logic. So the main goal of this, when you enter this, you're running this code inside the the MySQL, if you look at it this way. Now, is the main purpose here is to simply bypass authentication mechanism that verifies credentials, based like a username and a password. So by causing the query, okay, to always return true, 1 = 1, which means that the result is to return all records as you see on the screen over here. Here we could see that the first name, the last name. So we get access to certain records within the server database. Now there's another one. You got the input field, accept the following payload. Now, okay, you could try this in multi-date. Okay, you could try this and make sure that you put a space right here after the dash dash. Okay, and so as I explained before, this always evaluate to be true, allowing attackers to bypass authentication or modify SQL logic. Uh, the dash dash is like a comment operator in SQL, and so when you enter this into the name, you press enter, you get the username and a password, which was accessed from a certain database here. Now, example code also here, drop table students, semicolon. Okay. Now, the user input, the user ID here field is vulnerable because it does not sanitize this, okay, or validate the data that you're trying to submit it here. Now, before incorporating it into the database. So the payload, see the payload, drop data students, okay, domestic SQL injection attack, which means that it could delete the actual students table from the database if it was executed successfully without input validation. Now, we have another one here, an advanced SQL injection attack using the union select. Now, this statement is used to extract additional information from the database. Okay, so here's the payload. You enter the payload here inside, you submit, and you're getting this screen over here. Okay, so let's explain the payload. What does it? Now, the first part here, the one, okay, single quote, closes the first part of the existing query of SQL with a single quote, ending the current value being passed to the query. Okay, so next step here, or 1 = 1, that's again, that's the logical condition, like I explained before, always evaluates to true. So the query now selects all rows in the table because 1 = 1 ensures condition always succeeds. Okay, now for the union select null database, now the whole thing is appending the database name to the result. Okay, so let's take it, piece by piece. Now the union combines the results of the two select statements, select null and the database here. Okay, now we know that the null the null is a placeholder used to match the column count of original query, and the database here is, that's the built-in SQL function, by the way, that returns the name of the currently selected database. This part, essentially attempts to append the name of the database to the query's output, and it's going to result in this type of output right here. Okay, so a knowledgeable attacker, can even retain username and a password or hashes, like if they were able to find something, like a clue, or they find some vulnerability. They could download the hashes, and once they download the hashes, they could use tools like Hashcat or John the Ripper, try to crack the password hashes and figure out the passwords related to it. Now, let's talk about HTML injection attack. Now, okay, so here I have two figures, the first figure and the second figure. Now, this happens when HTML is injected into application to store injected HTML. You see that? Now, store the injected HTML into underlying database. Now, if successful, okay, the stored HTML may be retained as part of the web server response to subsequent user. Now, how I got this to work? Well, basically, I intercepted uh, the access to this site, by using the get. I intercepted through burp suite, and I went inside the source code, and I replaced the user agent. In case if you're not familiar, what is the user agent? This is part of HTTP header that identifies the client making the request to the web server. It provides information about the software, like browser, application, or tool, and its version. Okay. Now operating system also. So this helps the server understand what type of client is interacting with it, enabling it to tailor responses or functionality accordingly. Now, okay, so from the source code, I changed this one over here. Then I went back to the burp suite in the menu. I press forward, and the forward will result in the user seeing this message here, or this HTML injection attacks. Successfully injected HTML code, like you see it over here. Okay. Now, we have also command injection attacks. The command injection attacks exploit vulnerability in a web application or a system by injecting malicious commands into a command line CLI or shell of the targeted system. Now, if you look at, I have two different figures over here. The first one, you're accessing ping for free. If there's many sites you could do this, by the way. You could enter an IP and try to ping it. So you ping it, and then you put down here semicolon ls. The ping will result in this screen right here. The ls, that means what? I'm able to list the directory inside the target and see what it's at. Now, if the web application runs on a server with the root level, I just want you to imagine permissions, okay, the attacker potentially has unlimited power when using command injection, because, the application runs as a root. Now, you could try also a more advanced command, like, you put down if you want to ping some other computer, okay, here, okay, semicolon cat, etc, password, pipe, T, and the temporary pass. So you put down right here, you submit, and you get the ping running perfectly, no problem. Okay, and you get additional information. So what's going on here? So this command will display the content of this file, which is part of the Linux operating system on the web page, and also copy the content of this file into this particular file under temporary directory here. Now the semicolon right here, okay, it's basically separate two different commands. That's why, here you can see the ping for the IP right here. When you enter it, that's the IP I entered here. So it runs the first part. In the second part, okay, it runs different command. Now, so So now we understand what is the purpose of this part right here. Now, what is the pipe? The pipe, okay, is used to pass the output of one command as an input to another one. See, the output of this pipe to this one over here. Okay, now the T command takes the input from the pipe and writes it to the specified file, which is in our example, this file right here. Okay, now at the same time means what? Okay, I take the input and save it here, and at the same time, okay, I display the content. You see it over here at the same time. So that's the idea behind using this command. Now, uh, just note that this file does not contain any sensitive information, obviously. I mean, you could tell by looking at the screen here. And it is readable by all users and does not store password hashes. Now we know that in Linux the password hashes are stored in etc / shadow directory. Okay, but however, you could see that it contains like user IDs, group IDs, home directory, log and shell. Now, for the last part one here, we have lightweight directory access protocol LDAP injection attacks. Now, LDAP is commonly used to query or manage directory services such as Microsoft Active Directory or other directory service. Doesn't have to be only Active Directory, which stores information like username, password, groups information, and other permission. Now, the LDAP injection happens when attacker manipulates the user supplied input, like user and password, injecting malicious LDAP statement in a query. Now, this exploit application that failed to sanitize again will validate user input before using it in LDAP queries. Now, finally, I want to thank you so much for watching this video lecture. I hope you find this video useful. Please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. Again, thank you so much for watching.